Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't switch the mic on when you said hello there. So
Oh,
they got a low.
yeah. How you're feeling?
Yeah, very good. I feel terrible, but I'd just like to start today's show with a big shout out to Nog Ok, our most recent subscriber from Thailand, and just ask him what the hell he's doing. We don't really understand our demographic. It's two white men talking nonsense for an hour on a podcast that is really only designed for their mothers, and I want to know what's going on inside the mind of Nog Ok. So,
Listen,
Nogok, get in touch.
something very strange is happening. We've got a load of subscribers and a load of views for a good 30 seconds of each pod. But I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't know. If someone who actually has listened to the show could tell us whether they've subscribed, who knows? It might be to do with our new social channels, Ben, which
Or
are
yeah,
available.
I noticed in the analytics that they tend to drop off the moment you start talking. So, um, I think it's probably got something to do with that,
uh,
and maybe just our natural charisma as well
Maybe.
thrown into the
But of
mix.
course, if people want to know what is happening on the show, they can follow us at this show, D&B, on X and on Facebook now as well, because I understand Facebook more than
Do we
anything
have to
else.
call it X? I hate that it's called X.
I quite like X,
We're
but
millennials. Are we millennials?
I'm
What generation are we from?
I'm from D
Are
Generation
you a
X.
you're a boomer, aren't you?
I don't
When were you
know.
born?
I
In the
don't know what that
50s?
means. Shut up. You were born inside a tube, and, and
Yeah, in the millennial era.
and you
But
still have to sleep in it at night. And you have to like screw yourself into it every night. It's a fun thing to watch. I've
well,
seen it.
talking about the strange, intricate, and detailed fantasies that take place inside your mind. Today's topic is about serial killers,
Yeah.
which I think is a very interesting, very fascinating, and alluring topic that has created a whole genre on Netflix in recent years. Serial killers have been trending, man. They've come back into fashion. But like we spoke about in our previous episode on cults, both you and I recognised that when we were growing up, this kind of thing seemed to be much more common. It definitely was. The cults were more common and the serial killers were more common. You don't get a good serial killer nowadays, I don't think, or at least maybe they've got so good that they go undetected and they just don't get caught.
I
But
mean,
the
that's
last
a
serial
scary
killer,
thought, though, isn't it? That there
yeah,
are loads out there, and they're just, they've watched all these documentaries and know how
they're
not to get
learning.
caught.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're getting good. We've had decades of CSI, crime scene investigation. They know what to do, what not to touch, how to dispose of a corpse. They've
Hmm.
literally been educated in the art of serial killing, and thanks very much to um, streaming platforms, we now have a whole generation of very highly skilled and trained serial killers.
Yeah.
The last one was in 2011, by the way.
Oh, who was that?
I can't remember the name. I've just immediately realised that my research is not as deep as one question.
Well,
Um,
I, yeah, you know what? I think there's probably we need to go through criteria at some point of what makes you a serial killer, because there's been a few more recent ones, haven't there? That are more like healthcare professionals who.
well, I can tell you the criteria of a serial killer. Well, first, the definition of a serial killer. The name serial killer comes from an FBI agent. What was his name? Robert Ressler, who used the term serial homicide in 1974, and so it's quite a recent terminology. And then with the title, with the name, came the definition, which means depending where you are in the world. It's funny because serial killers are different, categorized differently depending where you are. But it's usually 2+ or 3+ murders. Um,
And they have to
One,
be individual, don't they? They can't, like, a
yeah,
mass shooting wouldn't count as a serial
no,
killer.
and there also has to be like a pattern emerging, or some kind of motive emerging. If it's like a crime of passion or something related to revenge, that's an emotionally driven act, violent act. That's not a serial killer. Serial killer is somebody who intentionally tracks and monitors their prey,
Hmm.
because it is prey, and they tend there's more kind of more of a story behind their motivation, usually something weird and sexual. But there are the phases of a serial killer. Would you like to know about the serial killer's cycle? It has 6 phases.
Would I?
Yeah. Right. Well, here you go. This will help you become a more effective serial killer.
Good.
Number one, the aura phase. The aura phase is when the serial killer begins losing a grip on reality. Right. So I think we've probably done that already.
Yeah,
We can talk about.
we've ticked
Yeah,
that one.
we've passed that one off. Number two is the trolling phase. I always say trolling because it's troll. I don't understand people who say trolling.
No,
And
that
I
sounds. I think that's a job at Tesco. Where,
trolling
yeah,
is
you collect them wheelie
collecting for.
things. Yeah,
Okay, you get the coins out
yeah,
occasionally as a little
yeah,
bonus.
yeah.
We're in the trolling phase. That's when the killer searches for a victim. They start trying to find someone to hit first. The third is the wooing phase, where
Mm.
they lure their victim. The fourth is the capture
Hold
phase,
on,
where
they lure their victim what? Like to their home under the pretense of COVID might have happened, and you've got to stay here for 18 months.
let's not make this personal.
Okay,
It's not
sorry.
about me, although obviously, yes, that did happen. Well, the fourth phase happened, the capture phase,
Ah,
where
yes.
the victim is entrapped, thanks to COVID or not. Then number five is the murder or totem phase, but obviously she got away, so that never happened. Which is the emotional high for the killer. Usually they get, some dopamine from having murdered someone.
Mm.
And then six, and this is the depression phase, which occurs after the killing, which launches them back into stage one because it's a cyclical thing.
Well,
Uh,
that's quite understandable, though, I suppose, because if you've had this massive release of dopamine and a dopamine high, then you're always
yeah,
going to be chasing that high, aren't you?
I
So,
think that we all experience that cycle, but not with murder. For me, it's like ordering a pizza or like eating like too much junk food. Like the
mm,
first phase, like you start to begin losing a grip on reality and thinking, maybe I know it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but maybe I do need 2 pizzas. And then you start searching for the place on Glovo, and then you lure the man with the pizza to your house. You capture it,
with the
then you
promise
eat.
of money.
Yeah. Then you murder it. You murder the pizza. You eat it, consume it, and then you get depressed, and then the whole cycle starts over again. So I think you can
Again.
apply to different aspects of life. Um,
Mm.
but who's the first in our list of serial killers? Would you like to dive straight in with one of yours?
Okay, well, I'd like to go for Ed Kemper. Edmund Kemper. Uh, he is an American chap, born in late 40s, 1948, I think. And I believe shares a birthday with me,
Oh,
which is quite exciting. Uh, so Ed Kemper, he's known as the co-ed killer. There he is. I know you've taken the piss out of my glasses, but like all of them do. They also often share bad haircuts and facial hair. But yeah, so he was known as the co-ed killer because most of his murders sort of took place around colleges, and it was college age girls that were his preferred sort of victim. Kemper's an interesting one. He and this is like, if we get serious for a second, a lot of these guys share very traumatic upbringings, a lot of sort of abuse at the hands of parents or family members, and Ed's like a classic case of one of these guys. Is he his mum was obviously suffering some mental health stuff and found it really hard uh, to look after him. Oh, the other thing about Ed Kemper is he was like Andre the fucking Giant.
Yeah.
Uh, when he was young, well, he was born and he was incredibly big. He was like 13 pounds, which is big for a baby, Ben.
Yeah.
I think Lily was about 9 pounds.
His poor mother.
Yeah, and by the time he was like 13, he was 6'6" and just massive. He didn't actually have like that giantism like Andre the Giant had,
No.
but he was just massive, and his mum just found him really hard to deal with. Um, he had he had a dad as well, but his mum and dad separated when he was sort of early teens. Um, and at that point, he was sent off to live with his like grandparents, which sounds quite nice, but he hated living there. His granddad was suffering with a bit of dementia, and by all accounts, his grandma was like a bit of a battle axe, I think is a nice way of putting it. So he had like a lot of trouble with them. He was living with them by the time he was 15. They were making him do chores and stuff, and he just didn't get along with them. And it culminated in an argument over pancakes, where like she wouldn't cook him some pancakes, the grandma. So I mean, what is a reasonable course of action for that?
Chop her up.
Go and get your shotgun and shoot her in the back several times over some pancakes. And then, of course, he also then went on to like stab her and like start dismembering her. And whilst this was going on, Grandad rolled up on the drive and he just went out and shot the Grandad as well. Which you'd have thought, at 15 years old would be a warning sign.
Yeah.
He did get arrested.
They let him off.
No, he got arrested and he went to prison. Court psychiatrist diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, which again is a very serious mental health issue and one that comes up across a lot of the guys we're going to talk about. But he did. He went to prison, but then he was like the model prisoner. So he didn't really stay that long. On his 21st birthday, he was released. So
that's extraordinary. So he's murdered 2 people, and he got out within 6-7 years.
6 years. So he was 15 when he went in. Yeah, 6 years.
Wow.
Which is, it's just crazy. Like I know he was juvenile when he did those murders.
What year was this? Sorry, it says 1973 on the picture that we're looking at. But when was that? That was his first violent act. When did that take place?
Well, he was released in 72, in November 72.
Right.
And as you that picture's a bit of a spoiler, really, isn't it? Because by 73 he was at it again.
He was back in again. Oh my god.
He are you on an aeroplane?
Sorry, I've got my window open again, and there is a F-21 flying over my apartment. It's gone now.
Good.
They're not looking for me.
Imagine if they tuned into this podcast on the radio as they went over. I'd imagine they're a bit more technologically advanced than that.
I've just got to ask a quick question before we move deeper into this story, because obviously he's about to get stabby or whatever it is that he got up to. Is there a very common theme, because we all watch Netflix nowadays, we've all seen CSI, and everybody is a detective. A common theme amongst serial killers is that they tend to desensitize themselves to the act of murder and to the act of killing by practicing on animals. Is that something that he did?
Not so much, really. I mean, there was there was certainly like some sexual stuff going on. I think his mum accused him of like
Peeping.
no, more than that, raping
Oh.
his little sister. Uh,
Oh.
uh, it's difficult to know if that was true or not. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, no, he in later interviews. I mean, it's quite interesting. There's a show called Mind Hunter, and it's about the setup of this of a department in the FBI. It's loosely factual, but Ed Kemper plays a big part in that. And later, when he's arrested for all these other murders, he does go back and he talks about burying a cat alive when he was a kid and some other cruelty to animals. But yeah, it is something. And you know, when at work and certainly with Sharon's work as well, you know, cruelty to animals is one of the red flags for like psychotic or psychopathic behavior. And generally it's a trauma response to something that's happened to them. Obviously a kitten or a dog you can have control over, whereas you as a child you can't control adults, can you? So yeah, that is an ongoing
another aspect is it's just because obviously, like I said before, as a joke, we're all experts now, but truly in the 70s a lot of this psychological investigation was quite new. They hadn't really identified this thing, the serial killers. They didn't really know what they were or what motivated them, and it was quite a shock that suddenly through the 70s and 80s they started popping up all over the place. Maybe because of different detective procedures or whatever. I mean, they've probably always been there, and we will talk about that later on. But they had to start kind of diagnosing these people. And you say when he went to prison, he was the model prisoner. That's a very, very common theme that as a sociopath, these people tend to mimic human behavior because they don't have their own emotional systems. They don't really have feelings, but they're very, very good at mimicking and displaying the emotions that will benefit them in any given situation. So it doesn't surprise me that he went to prison and they said, "Oh, what are you talking about? He's really okay. He made one mistake. He shot his grandma.
Two mistakes.
Come on. He's a nice guy.
Oh,
Look,
and there was that cat. But
yeah. Well, he probably had it coming, and you know, he's always bringing the books back to the prison library on time.
Yeah.
He says please. He says thank you. He's a nice dude. Let's give him another chance. And then here we are, 1 year later for this mugshot.
Yeah.
Tell us how we got there.
Well, between May and April, May 72 and April 73, he went on to kill 8 people. Basically, his MO was he'd pick up female students. Often they were like hitchhiking, which when I see hitchhikers, I'm like, no, I'm definitely not picking them up. But I suppose it was a lot more common.
You're scared you might murder them.
Well, no, I'm scared they'll murder me. Like, but by this point, he's 6'9" and about 20 stone. He's absolutely massive. So again, like another thing that recurs: why do people get in a car with this guy? I mean, you'll see on my next one, but like, why do you get in a car? Look at him. I say look at him, but you know, it's you never can tell. So he killed like eight people, and he'd pick up all these hitchhikers, all college age girls, and he'd kill them, dismember them, and then do stuff. He was known for decapitating people, and then having sex with their heads. Which, you know, he's a model prisoner. He's all right. Let's let him out. You know, it's just crazy how someone like that can get out. And it all sort of culminates. He's recontacted his mum by now, a lady called Clarnell, which sounds like a very.
But he murdered her parents.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah.
But remember, she's a bit ill as well.
Mm.
And he was back in contact. I think he was living with her after like losing a job and stuff. And on April 20th, so 8 days before that photo was taken, um, he killed his mum. And
Yeah.
like it was a prolonged attack. Not funny whatsoever. Like
Mm.
it was really, really brutal. And he did the same thing to his mum as he'd done to those other victims,
Mm.
decapitated her. And he said in later interviews that he took great satisfaction from having control over his mum and
Mm.
doing these like disturbing sexual things to a decapitated head.
Mm.
And it was the only time he'd ever felt in control. Um, af- and after that, actually, she wasn't the last one. For some reason, he then rang his mum's best mate and invited her over for dinner, which is a strange conversation, I'd imagine. You know,
Mm.
do you want to come over for dinner? Oh, with you and your mum? Oh, yeah. Uh, yeah,
Kind of.
yeah, come on, Doris, you come over.
Yeah.
Like putting
Yeah.
his mum's voice on or something.
Yeah.
And she came over, and he killed her as well, and
Obviously.
did a lot of stuff. And the idea was that if they were both dead, he could tell the police that they'd gone away on a trip together, and that was the last he saw of them.
Mm.
So he killed her, put them both in a cupboard, and then he sort of legged it. And he was on the run, but like not for very long. And when he realised no one was looking for him, he actually just rang the police and said, "Oh
We
yeah,
got bored.
yeah, I've done all this stuff, um, and yeah, come and get me." And they just picked him up, and he just immediately turned into the model prisoner.
And then they let him out 6 years later again, and oh, he's done it again! I can't believe we trusted you, man. No,
No, that was basically it. Basically it. He on in
he
November.
wouldn't do it a third time.
All right. So he's made 1, 2, 10 mistakes. No. But no, in November 73, he was convicted, guilty on all counts. He admitted all of his crimes, and he actually asked for the death penalty.
Mm.
But California at the time had like stopped doing the death penalty. I don't know if they do it now. I'm not sure, but
I think just living in California is the death penalty, so they don't need it.
But so he was in prison for like I think it was 12 consecutive life sentences, which is
Why do they do that? I don't understand that in America. There's like literally take someone to trial. If you commit a crime while you're inside with a life sentence, you murder somebody inside, they'll go throw the book at him, get 2 more life sentences from you. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Once I'm finished with this life sentence, I'll get. But how long is a life sentence? It doesn't. Does it actually mean life? I don't think it does it?
no,
Like 40 years.
Well, no, I think in the States it's like hundreds of years. So people end up
What
with
is the point in that? Like
they
who
end up
you're
with
just
like
trying to impress
3,000 years of
the public?
imprisonment. I don't know. Maybe they're expecting alien invasion and and then they have to keep them frozen or what. I don't fucking know. They may as well just say you're going
It's
to
just
die in
daft.
prison.
Yeah. Throw away
What
the
was
kidney.
interesting though during the trial and after, you know, I said he had this paranoid schizophrenic diagnosis when he was 15 and he killed his grandparents.
Mm.
A bit like what you were saying about the new way of investigating serial killers. They actually like re-diagnosed him, and paranoid schizophrenia is a bit like in the 70s or back in the day, a lot of people got diagnosed with that. It was a sort of blanket diagnosis, a bit like personality disorder is today. And they said, "Oh no, actually, you're showing absolutely no signs of paranoid schizophrenia. He had no like delusions, no hallucinations, nothing like that." So they sort of re-diagnosed him with what they called personality trait disturbance, of the passive aggressive type.
Yeah.
I mean, he was also diagnosed as antisocial, narcissistic, and
Yeah.
schizotypal personality disorders, which is all slightly different to paranoid schizophrenia, and probably a bit more accurate for him. And then, yeah, he went to prison forever. He was in the general population for a long time. And again, like just model prisoner, you know. He was denied parole in 2017, thankfully,
Yeah.
but is apparently eligible again next year. So who knows?
Wow.
They might go, he's really
Yeah.
good at cleaning his cell.
He
Let's
wouldn't do it again. Yeah, I
surely
don't.
not,
Not
not
again.
again.
He's just
Do
obviously.
you reckon that Britney song's about him? Yeah, like it's yeah,
Oops.
it's
Did it
nuts.
again.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy.
what shocks me about what you've just explained is that he was insecure. I mean, as a 6'9" man, and like to only feel like you have control when you're murdering your mother. I mean, maybe if he shaved his moustache and took those glasses off, he would have had a more positive experience of society.
Well, it is quite interesting because a lot of other serial killers, I'm not sure who you've got lined up, but a lot of serial killers are reported to be really charming.
Yeah.
Let's face it, the vast majority of serial killers are men. So they're often reported as sort of being ladies' men, really charming, confident, going out.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, they're both notoriously charismatic. Yeah.
Yeah, Ted Bundy, certainly. I don't know about Dahmer, but, Ed Kemper wasn't. He was always awkward, always very quiet, but always polite and nice. And, people described him as a gentle giant until he got the faces off.
Just don't ruin his pancakes.
Yeah. Boy loves his pancakes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so that's him. I mean, still alive. He's helped out with a lot of FBI profiling. I believe he is one of the serial killers that the character in Silence of Lambs. What's his name? I want to say Sideshow Bob, but it's not.
Buffalo Bill.
Buffalo Bill was based on.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's interesting because actually, that I just seg into my serial killer through Ted Bundy, because a lot of serial killers, like you say, are used for profiling, and Ted Bundy was used as one of the influences for Hannibal Lecter, because Hannibal Lecter in the film Silence of the Lambs. Spoiler alert: he is being interviewed by a detective to catch Buffalo Bill, and it's one of the influences is Ted Bundy helped to catch Gary Ridgway, who is the what was his name, the Green River Killer. He wrote a letter to the detective that was on the case at the time, called Dave Reichart, I think it was, and he said, hang on, I've got the letter here somewhere. Don't ask me why I believe I'm an expert in this area. Just accept that I am, and we'll start from there. And basically,
confident.
Yeah.
I might use that in this job interview. I've got to come in.
Well, the reason, because you mentioned psych profiling, the reason is that he recognised the patterns in Ridgway's the evidence that had been left behind, and it was they both basically did exactly the same thing, which was this is how they caught Ridgway in the end. He said that guy he's going to go back to his victims' bodies because he's going to want to put some lipstick on them and lay down with them and do some weird stuff. And lo and behold, he did. And that's exactly what Bundy used to do. He liked going back to the corpses and watching them change colour and do weird stuff. Yes, it's gross, but he was, like many other serial killers, involved in the capture of other serial killers, like hackers nowadays, help to improve the security of various big corporations. Ed Kemper, everybody.
See you later, Ed.
See you, Ed.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, well, yeah, hope not. I'm going to go for a more classical approach. As I said earlier, the idea, the concept of the serial killer is a relatively modern concept. At the very least, the terminology is new. However, there have always been crazy ass people out there doing crazy ass shit, and I would like to talk to you about Elizabeth Bathory. Have you heard of Elizabeth Bathory?
No.
She's also known as the Countess, or the Bloody Countess, or the Countess of Blood. She's one of the.
Sorry, the pictures just popped up.
Yeah,
Oh,
there she
we're
is.
going old school. Nice.
Yeah. This is super old school, man. This is from. She was born in 1560, and she died in a tower, locked in a tower in 1614. She's from Hungary. She was a noblewoman, and she influenced the concept of the vampire, and the she-vampire, as well as I think there's a little bit of her in, oh man, what's his name from American Psycho? You've seen that film, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the character's name though.
But the concept of people being able to get away with vulgar acts and acts of murder because they are protected by an elite kind of level of society.
Okay.
And that's exactly what she did. She was a very wealthy woman. She was very well-to-do. Everything was normal. She got married into the right caste. And unfortunately for her, her husband died. And she was left a very wealthy woman, just living in this massive castle in Hungary. Obviously now Slovakia. Let me see if I can remember. What was it she did? She used to. Well, okay. I'll tell you a couple of the things that she did, and then I'll go into some more detail. Some of the witness reports are that she would beat people, she would burn them, she would mutilate their hands specifically, and she would freeze or starve them to death. That was at the beginning, because she was very, because she had this status in society. A lot of other rich people or nobles would send their daughters to her, to the castle, to do the like a finishing school.
Okay.
Like to train the girls how to be members of the upper class. But she'd just brutally murder them. Yeah. And it started off quite kind of innocently. She would just torture these girls, but then she just got like bloodlust. And according to the Budapest archives, one of the things she'd do is cover them in honey and then live ants. She'd burn them with tongs, and then put their burnt hands or the burnt body parts into freezing water. So there's a lot of torture going on. She used to stick needles into their lips and different body parts. She was very jealous of young people, of young girls specifically. She'd stab them with scissors, bite off their breasts, bite their faces and their limbs, and then she just went completely batshit and she just started murdering, straight out murdering them. And this is where the vampire connection comes from. It's told that she used to bathe in their blood, and the number of victims is that they never got an accurate number, but she may well be the most prolific serial killer in known history. They think that it's more than 300 girls and locals that she killed, and she was just living in this castle in Hungary, bathing in blood. You can see how Bram Stoker came up with the vampire link.
Sorry, my geography is awful. It's like Transylvania's next to Hungary, is it?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
There's a hop and a skip.
Okay. But because she was of noble blood or nobility, what
Hmm.
people just continued sending people to her.
Well, nobody could say anything. It is the people that were working in her castle were basically trapped. They couldn't say anything against her, and they couldn't escape.
All right.
And they just kept sending these girls. Eventually, somebody said, "Excuse me, my daughter came to do like 4 years ago to finish for finishing school, and she's not come back." Yeah, about that.
Yeah, sorry, don't know where she's
Uh,
gone. Yeah. Oh, I mean, imagine that, the royals getting away with a load of shit, and no, it had all been covered up. How times
Was
haven't changed.
she literally she got caught red-handed. She got caught by one of the a lord turned up unannounced to check in on his daughter, and she was in the act of torturing somebody. Um, and yeah, that is it all. It all went downhill from there. Oh, yeah, her family did actually come from Transylvania. There you go.
Oh,
They ruled in Transylvania. But
there
she
was a lot of
was,
this kind of stuff going on in that part of the world, wasn't there? Like
oh,
Vlad the Impaler and
yeah,
all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's often referenced as the female Vlad, and yeah, it's just that they could get away with it. In the Middle Ages, and around Europe, you have these highly powerful people that control whole countries, vast areas of land, and they literally can just get away with turning up at a farm and murdering everybody. It just doesn't matter. Her biggest mistake was that she murdered nobility. Otherwise, I'm sure nobody would have really cared. In the end, because this lord that turned up to find her torturing someone and realised that his daughter had been killed, she got detained, and she wasn't executed. She was just locked in a tower, which was bricked up, and she just stayed there until she died at the age of 54. But apparently she maintained her youthful looks, and everyone put that down to the fact that she'd been bathing in blood.
Wow.
So all of the vampiric kind of folklore comes from, well, not all of it, but most of it comes from that. So there she is, Elizabeth Bathory, the noble woman who got away with a whole lot of carnage.
Hmm. I don't know. The olden days, like, it seems like you could do whatever you wanted,
Absolutely.
especially if you were of noble blood. But
I'm not going to talk about him, but I will just very briefly mention Jack the Ripper, because
oh yeah,
I don't know if you know the one of the theories of his identity was that he was Queen Victoria's grandson, Eddie, the Duke of Clarence. Have you heard that?
right. No, I didn't know that.
It's the same thing. Because this guy, the Duke of Clarence and Avondale, or Eddie as he was known, he had a reputation, and one of the theories is that he used his nobility, again his position as a royal, or rather the royal family covered it up for him, because he had like a form of syphilis-induced psychosis. And everybody thought, oh, he's the Duke, he's loopy, the loopy Duke. But his brain was literally just being eaten by syphilis, and he had done some stuff that was known about. He had done some weird stuff, but he had also had a relationship with a woman in the East End around Whitechapel.
A
He had
prostitute.
yeah, he had a with a Catholic woman called Annie Crook, and she had a child, and there was a whole scandal around that, and they think that he just basically went on a killing spree, and that the royal family went, oh bloody hell, cover that up, blame it on someone else.
Yeah.
They tried to blame it. I think they went a little bit anti-Semitic actually. They tried to blame it on immigrants of a certain religious group. But there's a whole thing about the Freemasons getting involved, and the Freemasons being used as an arm of the royal family to cover everything up. But yeah, just talking about noble position and getting away, literally getting away with murder. Right, who's up next?
Well, from me, it's a British couple, which might sort of give it away straight away to some people. But I'd like to introduce you in particular to Frederick West. Frederick Walton Stephen West. Four names for one really, really bad man. Uh, Born in the 40s, out in Gloucester. Just look at that face. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know, man. I feel that that looks like a typical 70s TV show about a couple that live on a barge.
this is the photo that was like used in all the papers, and I remember this because it was only like the mid '90s when all of this came out. So I was like a teenager, and yeah, I remember all of this coming out, and that was the photo that
Yeah.
that was plastered everywhere, and it was Christmas time as well, and like just this huge story about Fred and Rose West. Um, yeah, there's been like quite a few couples. There was obviously the Hindleys,
Mm.
who were from up north, and they went around killing a lot of people. And it's quite often um, the female party in these couples will be used to lure in uh, fellas for the guy to then kill. Um, but in this case, that's not how these two worked. So Fred West, he was like I say, born in Gloucestershire, um, and again, just a really, really troubled childhood. Um,
Mm.
I think it's fair to say that the area he lived in as a child was a limited gene pool, if I put it that way.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure there was a lot of, uh, let's just call it what it is, incest and
Yeah.
inbreeding
You.
within families. And
Yeah. It's cheaper at Christmas. You only need to buy one present for your brother and your uncle.
yeah, I mean, it's nuts. Um, he grew up, it sounds like he was quite poor, um, and he was one of eight kids, six of whom were still alive. Um, Now, it all got pretty weird pretty quickly. Uh, he 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 was sexually active with
Mm.
some of his brothers and sisters by the time he
Mm.
was 12, and also sort of engaging in what they called acts of bestiality
Ugh.
with some of the animals around the farm. Um, so it was a fucked up childhood. Let's put it
Mm.
that way. Um, he he was caught peeping quite early.
Mm.
You know, oh, he's a peeper, is what
Yeah.
they'd say there.
He's just a cheeky peeper. Yeah.
Yeah, just a cheeky peeper. Um, and he was in and out of trouble with the police when he was 17, which this bit's fairly interesting. I think he he had quite a big accident. I think he was riding a motorbike and he came off, and he got like a fairly severe brain injury.
Mm.
Which sort of may have affected some of his cognitive uh, capabilities. Um, in 1961, he was arrested for raping his sister, which had been going on for like the previous decade. Uh, and at that time, he like went, "Yeah, I've been having sex with my sister. Is that a
What?
problem?" And like he just didn't sort
Yeah.
of understand that it was like a crime and obviously very wrong and very
Mm.
disgusting. But yeah, eventually he was arrested for it and he did a little bit of time. He was disowned by his family and then sort of eventually came out and of prison and sort of cracked on with life. He did a lot of sort of menial jobs.
Was he a model prisoner?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine he probably was, But when he got out of prison in like the 60s, he met a lady called Bernadette Costello, who he had some kids with. Um, all went very wrong very quickly. You know,
This is her in the picture.
no, that's
No.
Rose. So
Oh, that's
that's
right.
later. Um, but yeah, he had some kids with this lady and just started abusing the kids, which
Mm,
is in really grotesque and horrible ways. Um, so Rena was his first wife, and he had some kids with her, and then sort of killed a couple of them, uh,
mm,
and got away with it for years and years and years. And then he met, but he sort of split up with the partner. Um, she probably thought something was going on, but again, these
mm.
things that like just don't get reported to the police, and it's crazy. Like from a sane point of view, like why is the partner not reporting things?
Hmm.
Um,
I suppose it's just a completely different time. You know, like we say, a lot of these things were known but not spoken about. They weren't properly defined. I think a lot of the time people just weren't protected. Like, but it was. I think relationships were considered to be a private affair a lot of the time, and abuse inside of a relationship was probably a lot more difficult to report to the police and to have the police actually take action. Like,
yeah, I mean, we're talking about the 60s. I don't
yeah,
think, I mean, looking back at sort of children's homes and uh,
mm,
social care, and there was a lot of terrible shit going on. And I, is it fair to judge the services that were around by today's standards? Yeah, I'd say
but
yes. They were shit.
yeah,
It was awful. Um, but yeah,
mm.
he got away with a lot of shit for a long time, and then he met Rose, who is the lady in the
Is
picture.
that when he met her? Was it because he just popped up from behind that sofa? Is that how they
she,
met?
she was in
Just
DFS, and he was that was his MO. He used to hide behind sofas.
woo,
Hey, of course, Rose was underage when he met her.
of
Um,
course.
but then on her 16th birthday, she ran off with him, basically. Um, they lived in like some like shitty caravan park,
Mm,
and Rose was like, she's described as never having had a boyfriend,
mm,
but being overtly promiscuous and very flirty. I think is I'm not I can't remember exactly what they said, but basically she was overtly sexual, and Fred quite liked this because he was, he'd been described as a massive sexual deviant. Um, they got together and basically the murders started by 71. They'd had kids, and
mm.
they killed one of them. The first one
Oh,
was a daughter called Charmaine.
mm,
And this just went on and on and on, and like just so many kids of their kids. The family joke was do what you're told, otherwise you'll end up under the patio with your sister. Um, Eventually, I mean, there's so many murders to go
what a
through.
delightful sense of humour.
Yeah, and there's just so many to go through. I'd really suggest like there's a great ITV drama about this, which is
Mm.
very accurate. Um, but he was eventually caught and arrested after his 13-year-old.
Parking ticket.
No, I wish.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, his 13-year-old daughter had had enough and sort of let a friend know that a dad had been abusing her and raping her like for 13 years, for as long as she could remember.
Mm.
And this friend told her mum, and her mum reported it. So in August of 92, he was arrested. Um, they they sort of searched the house, found some secret rooms. Rose by this point had been like there's a lot of sexual stuff going on. I think we call it cuckolding.
Yeah.
Is that the term? Like
Yeah.
Rose was working as a prostitute. Fred would sit in and watch, and there's like some real odd sexual behaviour. But they searched the house, found some secret rooms and stuff. And yeah, some of the surviving West children said that they mentioned this thing about we had to keep quiet, otherwise we'd end up buried under the patio like our sister. And when the police heard that, they went, we may as well have a little dig about. And they started digging, and they were just pulling body part after body part, bone after bone, like to the point where they weren't even sure like how many bodies were in the garden. It was crazy. I remember it being in the news, and like every night this hole in the garden just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just kept finding more and more bodies. And in the end, he was charged with 12 murders, and Rose was charged with 9 murders. He went on, so this was like getting towards 1994, I think. He went on to like get charged with all of this, and then on, I believe it was Boxing Day, he killed himself in his cell, so as not to get the sentence, I suppose. Rose was also sentenced for a lot of murders. And am I right? Did she die a couple of years ago? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know if that was Hindley or Rose. Maybe it was Rose. Yeah, you might be right.
Oh no, sorry, I'm just looking.
Was it?
No,
was it
No,
you're thinking of Hindley?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Hindley.
Yeah.
Rose West is in HM Prison Newhall, where she continues to protest her innocence. It's the latest. It's just a horrible, messed up couple of people getting together and creating a really messed up, fucked up family, where a lot of stuff could have been done by services, but never happened.
Well, one of the questions that I should have asked early on, but I suppose maybe it's more appropriate now we've listened to some of these tales, is the typical nature versus nurture. Are these people born evil? What drives them to do this? And these are the questions that the investigators were asking in the 70s, because they just couldn't get their heads around how people were doing this, why people were doing this, and they had to start a completely different form of investigation, because when you question somebody who's done something unimaginable, as a person with a functioning emotional system, it's very easy to get. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm just going to seg into. I don't want to talk about him too much, but I found some of the information around the Ed Gein case quite interesting. Ed Gein, you know Ed Gein?
Yeah.
Probably one of the most famous serial killers, and definitely one of the most influential in terms of film. And as far as nature versus nurture goes, again, you talked about the traumatic circumstances in Fred West's childhood and Kemper's childhood. And Ed Gein, he didn't really have that. He didn't really have that. But he did have a strong attachment to his mother, and mother is one of the key words in terms of influencing film, because he is one of the main influences in Norman Bates, the Bates Hotel Psycho. He's also one of the influential characters for Buffalo Bill as well, and for just those two, I think. Who else did he influence? I can't remember this. He influenced so many different Norman. Oh, that was it. Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, is this a guy? He collected body parts.
This is that. the reason that he influenced Norman Bates is because he had a weird relationship with his mother, and when she died, he basically went nuts, and he kept her body. He dug her body up. That was the first thing that he did. He got into uh, digging up corpses. What do we call that?
Grave robbing.
Grave robbing and necrophilia as well.
Oh.
And he influenced Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because he made a skin mask. We literally made a mask out of somebody's face. He made a load of stuff. Buffalo Bill, because the same reason, he made a nipple belt. In fact, I've got a list of some of the things that were found in his House of Horrors when they finally caught him.
Go on.
He had a waste basket made of human skin. Human skin covering most of the chairs. He had skulls on his bedposts. He had bowls made from human skulls. He had a corset that he made from a female torso, skin from shoulders to waist. That's the Buffalo Bill influence. He had leggings made from human leg skin. He had a mask from the skin of a female head. That's the Leatherface.
Yeah.
He had one of the most famous ones is the nipple belt. Apparently, he was quite good. He was quite good.
He sounds like an expert seamstress.
He actually was. He had a load of noses attached to the cord on his like the whole house was just so many details that they were finding all of this stuff for months.
A nose would
like,
make a good light switch if you think.
But
about it.
it's just it's just like they were trying to like move the stuff out, and they're like, "Oh, what do you want me to do with this lamp?" And like, hang on a minute, that's made out of a testicle. It's just like everything that they touch, they like find it's something new.
I bet he's on that couch, surfer app. I bet he was on that, or
probably.
he would be now.
He was the founder. Yeah.
Fuck me.
Listen to this: a shoebox full of vulvas.
Wow. I mean,
how do you even? I don't even know how that works.
Yeah, but who doesn't need a shoebox full of vulvas? Jeez.
Well, yeah, or two. A pair of lips on a windowsill, on a window shade drawstring. A pair of lips. How do you even? How do you do that? Like, there's genuinely some skill involved. But what's interesting is that it was one of the first and most horrific cases. It happened in 1968. The guy that the interrogating officer that had to do the initial interrogation, he had no skill set. He had no previous experience because nobody knew what all of this stuff was.
No.
And he got so enraged when he was trying to interview this guy that he almost beat him to death. He started smashing his face against a desk. And his name was Art Schley, the investigator. He had a heart attack because of the trauma, everything that he saw before the trial ended. He died. He went mad. He went mad. The guy that was investigating it.
I mean, it's got to have an effect on people, hasn't it? I think, I mentioned that Mindhunter, which is it's not a documentary, it's a drama series. I think it's on Netflix. Well worth a look. But yeah, the guys that were interviewing all these guys, they did become affected. And when the FBI sort of started looking at serial killers as a thing, rather than, it seems like before they just went, oh yeah, Steve, he loves a bit of murder, he keeps doing it, but that's just how he is.
He's probably not got enough iron in his diet.
It would have been something like that. But yeah, it's certainly got to affect you dealing with these people, and it all certainly in film and like TV. People tend to specialize in these, don't they? And criminal psychologists and stuff, I suppose they do specialize in that. So let's spare a thought for all the criminal psychologists.
Just on the point of nature versus nurture, the reason that this Art Schley, I don't know how to pronounce his name, guy went crazy is because he was an ordinary bloke confronted with evil that he'd never seen before. He didn't have his own capacity for understanding that, and the answers to the questions that he was getting were so cold and detached that it made him go insane. You might say that's the first person to kind of truly encounter a sociopath, those people are, what are they? Are they a product of their environment? Are they a product of their, or are they just naturally born that way? Well, according to a study focusing on a group of sociopaths who were adopted as infants, it showed that the biological relatives of sociopaths were 4 to 5 times more likely to be sociopathic than the average person. So the researchers note that it is easier for, and this is a quote from the study. I don't have the name of the study, unfortunately. Bad seeds to blossom in bad environments, and I think that's one of the earlier studies that they did believe that it was a combination of both, and I think that they agree on that to this day. That you tend to have there is something genetic, but it creates the environment because you're being raised around people who are genetically inclined to that behavior, and then they perform acts around you that influence your behavior. So it's both, it's nature and nurture that produces serial killers.
I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Like we found some common trends in the 4 that we've talked about. I think your mum is a common trend, isn't it? But to say that, like I don't think it's about what we call SMD today, severe multiple disadvantage. I don't think all serial killers have come from poor backgrounds. I don't think, not all of them are uneducated. I mean, Ted Bundy was a very educated guy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So is for a genetic thing? I don't think there's been a serial killer gene found. I know they've looked for it. The FBI, when they first started looking into it, they came up with a very simple three categories, which was organized, disorganized, and mixed. So a bit of both, so it was people that were planning it, going out, like, checking out maps, staking out places and seeing where people were going, and then killing them. And then there was disorganized, which would just be a bit like Ed Kemper. I think he was disorganized because he'd just drive around, see someone, go, oh, I'm having them, kill them. And then obviously there's ones that are mixed, where they plan stuff and then perhaps come across people. But yeah, that nature versus nurture, I don't know. I think there's an argument for both. I think if people are traumatized in early life and are brought up in a very traumatic, fearful environment, they're going to act out in some way. And this might just be an extreme version of that. Lesser versions are, substance misuse, turning to crime.
I think addiction actually plays a big part in it. The transition from addiction to substances into the addiction to control that comes with taking somebody's life and having absolute power over them. I think like you described with Kemper, like he was saying, that was the only time he felt powerful, when he was standing over his mother. I can see that as a kind of a psychological break where they feel like they're taking control by destroying something.
Well, he actually had a term for it, the feeling he'd get when he killed someone, and it was quite cute. He called it, "Oh, I've got the zapples."
The what?
The zapples.
The zapples.
No, zapples, like apples, but with a Z.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what he called it. He goes, "Yeah, I'd get the zapples," and I liked it, so I kept doing it. So there is a high involved. Some
probably
sort
worth
of
putting that on a T-shirt, I think.
Got the zapples. There you go. Stick it on one of yours. Yeah, man. It does seem less now, doesn't it? Less.
It does, but I think just to go full circle, I genuinely think that they're less detectable than they were before.
Yeah.
I mean, we have more advanced like forensic methodologies for detecting people, but at the same time, they keep putting all of those methodologies on the bloody TV, so everybody knows how to get away with murder. There's literally a book and a TV series called How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I do really enjoy.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Something I feel bad for the person who's died or whatever. No, it's like when someone like gets arrested 30 years later, and it's because their niece has like had a fight in a pub. There is a case of this. I can't remember the details, but it was someone's niece had a fight in the pub, and they took a DNA swab from her, which is a kind of standard thing for any crime of aggression now. And they took a DNA swab, and eventually it was run through the computer, and it came up with it as a very close match to a DNA swab from like 1982 of a woman who was murdered. And it wasn't this niece because she wasn't alive, but then they tested it, they went, oh fuck, and it flagged. You can imagine on the computer it just flashes red, hey, we got a match, and then they just went round to her families, like her uncles and stuff, and it was her uncle had murdered this woman like 30 years previous, and because his horrible as-bone niece had a pub fight, he got caught. And that to me is amazing, like the DNA stuff that's gone on, and the better sort of profiling of these people.
That's true, but that's also worked in the opposite direction. There have been several cases where people have gone to death row. There was that boy, that boy that was executed in the US. I can't remember the name of the case.
I mean, they make a lot of mistakes in the US.
They made a mistake. He was absolutely horrific. He got basically framed for a crime, and he was sent to death row, and he was executed.
Oh, and he had like learning difficulties, this kid.
Yeah, he was just a really innocent young kid. And they killed him. They executed him, and then 20 years. Obviously, he got pardoned, but I don't think you're really that interested when you've been dead for 25 years.
I maybe that's another show, but like the death penalty as punishment, Ed Kemper asked for it, and I mean, I think it was proven without doubt that Ed had done all these things.
Yeah.
But when there is a margin of doubt, is the death penalty a legitimate punishment? Because there's always that chance, and I don't know.
Stop them letting him out again, so he can just do it. You know?
He'll be all right. Well, let's see.
Stay tuned.
What happens in 2020.
We'll keep you updated, listeners.
We'll come back to this. Maybe we could get him on.
I'd make a good guest.
He can do it from your house, so like
I've got a spare room. Yeah. I'll do him some pancakes for breakfast. Make sure I don't burn them. Oh, your microphone's gone off. It's just me. It's just me ending the show on my own. Then is it? Okay, fine. Well, that's as good a place as any. It's just I'm getting a Skype disconnected tone coming through the sound waves. So we will call it a day. Thanks for listening, everybody. No. I'm finished. I'm wrapping up without you. I don't need you to intervene now. I'm just literally signing off on my own to my own mother. Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah. Okay. Great show. Have we worked anything out?
No.
All right. Okay. Great show. Love you. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Medically